got my reusable water bottle with me. I think I'd be very judged in this crowd for having a plastic one. So first of all, thank you so much, Wired, for having me here today. One of the things, and this kind of just sharing a thought, is I've spoke to some people in the room today, some people in startups, some people thinking about it. And if I thought I was going to be standing here 3 years ago, I don't think I ever could have imagined it. I was a small cog in a very big machine. So thank you so much for the opportunity. So as Ollie says, I'm here from Verv, and we are on a mission to bring electricity bills down to zero. And we plan to do that by creating a new energy marketplace that's powered by data. So let's talk about the reality of today's energy system. And I should say a bit of a disclaimer at the beginning. I'm going to use energy company quite generically. And in that way, I'm generally talking about big six energy companies. We've heard from the amazing Bulb today, and also Good Energy, that are trialing a lot of the things I'm talking about. So today's energy system is broken. It has failed to innovate at the same rate as other industries, and as a result, the big six have found themselves on a race to zero profits. So what I mean by that is, historically, energy companies attracted and retained customers by offering the best tariff. And then with the advent of Money-Saving Expert and Labrador, which unfortunately we didn't hear from today, it's much easier for consumers to switch. And so therefore, they don't have the same brand loyalty as you would for a laptop or a mobile phone. So it's after lunch, everyone's sleepy, we'll have a bit of audience participation. Can you raise your hand if you or someone in your family has some form of renewable energy? So like a solar panel on the roof or a wind turbine. Wow, you can tell we're in the energy room. That's quite a lot. So I don't know why I have my hand up, because I don't even own my own roof. I'm in my 20s in London, right? So I don't have a roof to put the energy on. My neighbour, however, Mrs. Jones, does. In fact, she generates double the energy she needs in a year from her solar panels, and the rest gets sold back to the grid for 5 pence per kilowatt hour thanks to the feed-in tariff. But that's pretty good. Except I'm sitting right next door paying 15 pence per kilowatt hour for my energy. So wouldn't it be great if I was able to buy her excess energy from her for, say, 10 pence per kilowatt hour, and I have the advantage of knowing that it's clean, renewable energy as well. So no-brainer. With the feed-in tariff not being renewed after April 2019, so the scheme is closing by the looks of things, it's going to result in an even longer payback period for people like Mrs. Jones. And it's vital that we have as short a payback period as possible to encourage the uptake of renewables. So this new energy system that I'm going to talk about today, the bedrock of how we're going to create a system with the consumer at the center is data. So my Mrs. Jones example was just one story about how the energy system doesn't work for everyone, but there are many more. So we sample current and voltage at up to 1 million times a second with our Verv hub. You can see it up in the corner there. And this allows us to see in real time which appliances are on in the home by applying machine learning to that data. So this is data we've never had access to before. You might think, oh, is it like a smart meter? Smart meters sample like once every 10 seconds. You can't see anything from that. You might take a guess at something massive like a washing machine or something that's been on for an extended period of time. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how it works. So one of my favorite things to talk about is to make technology easy. And if you imagine we had a microphone in this room and loads of you spoke at one time, we could apply machine learning to separate out the different voices. So my voice will sound very different, particularly from the guys in the room, I hope. And it's due to the frequency and different characteristics. So in the same way as my voice is very different from yours, a toaster has a very different voice or signature to a microwave, and similarly to the food mixer. So all our appliances are talking at one time, but we can separate out their different voices. And in fact, we can even see if their voice is starting to change. So if they're starting to experience a fault, we can tell. And this is data that we have never had access to before, and it's using just one sensor. And the real value of this is that we can forecast more accurately than anyone else what the energy consumption of that home is going to be in the next 5 minutes, couple of hours, couple of days, couple of months even after we build up the usage profile. So I've talked about how we can forecast how much energy we need. Now I'm going to talk about some other trends in the industry, and they have been mentioned today. I would say it's about 5 years ago we started to see solar panels pop up everywhere. And a big part of that is that the cost has fallen year on year since 2011. It's also expected to fall a further 25% by 2022. So we're going to see even more. In addition to that, battery storage has gone under some similar technological change. Batteries have got smaller, thanks to Tesla making batteries a bit sexy. Everyone's innovating there. You can even buy batteries in IKEA now, which is pretty amazing. One thing I will say, and so I should say it's cost related as well. So since 2010, there's been a 50% drop in cost of batteries. The battery, though, doesn't have to look like this Tesla Powerwall. Think about electric vehicles. Hayden mentioned it in his previous talk as well. Especially in London, we don't use our cars very often. So if you have your electric vehicle parked up outside, you can charge it when maybe you've got a bulb tariff when it's nice and cheap, or when the sun's shining and you're getting loads of sunshine during the day. So that's pretty cool as well. So these three things together are what makes up our energy trading platform. So I spoke about Mrs. Jones and her demand profile. So we, using Verv, can see how much energy all these homes are going to require due to their routines and also the appliance data. So knowing if it's the kettle that's just come on or the washing machine. Very different energy requirements. In addition to that, Mrs. Jones's solar panels, we know, well, we can approximate the energy that they're going to generate by looking at the weather forecast, pretty obvious. But also satellites. We can tell using satellite data how thick the clouds are, and therefore predict very accurately over the future 48-hour period how much energy the solar panels are going to generate. Then we can look at the battery supply and see what level the battery's at and whether we have enough excess to be able to trade with a neighbour. And this all makes up our peer-to-peer energy trading platform. So to make this super simple again, let's go back to Mrs. Jones. Today's Tuesday, so she'll have boiled her kettle at about 8 o'clock this morning. After the kettle has been boiled, that's the last time she's going to use energy until 6 o'clock when she comes back from work. Really sunny day today, the solar panels are going to generate tons of energy. But Verv knows that it was just the kettle in the morning and not a washing machine, so it's only going to need a certain amount of energy. And then it also knows that today's Tuesday, Mrs. Jones is a creature of habit. She always does her laundry in the evening, so she's going to need the washing machine and the tumble dryer, and then her ambient use of energy for usual cooking and cleaning. Once her battery is charged to that level, probably by 10 or 11, say, in the morning, then Verv can automate the trading of her energy to the other neighbours, such as me, who's right next door, and I'm working from home and need to use the energy all day. So the big question here is, how do we record those transactions? I told you we're on a mission to reduce energy bills to zero. So if I start saying, OK, we at Verv are going to say Mrs. Jones sent Maria this much and she owes her this much money, we're putting a middleman in the middle, and that's going to result in a more inflated cost. So we have decided, because it's the best and most cost-effective solution right now for this, to use the blockchain. Anyone who is scared of the blockchain, don't be. It's just a distributed ledger, and think of it as a spreadsheet that everyone can see. Anyone who does know about the blockchain in the audience is ready to throw something at me, but for the purposes of my discussion today, that's the best way to think about it. It's just a technology that enables us, in this case, to trade energy peer-to-peer without having to have a middleman. So what I've talked about sounds very futuristic. However, we are actually already doing this. So I am so proud to say that we did the first ever peer-to-peer energy trade on the blockchain right here in London in April of this year. So this is Bannister House estate in Hackney, where the residents crowdfunded, along with Repowering London, solar panels on the roofs of the tower blocks. There's actually 17 of these tower blocks on the estate. The energy is then used to power the community centre, which sadly isn't used very often, and then also the lifts and some of the corridors. The rest then is sold back to the grid for 5p per kilowatt hour in a feed-in tariff. But now, instead of paying 15p per kilowatt hour like me, there's actually many of these residents who are paying more than that because they have got a prepay meter, which comes with a different tariff. So for this reason, just because they're paying a prepaid meter rather than monthly direct debit, they pay a higher price per kilowatt hour. So with that in mind, if we have some of the poorer people in our society paying more for energy, is it any wonder that we have people choosing between heating their homes and feeding their families? So I'd like to thank the residents that have taken part in the trial. So we've got 40 residents in Hackney taking part in the trial, and also we've done this within the Ofgem sandbox. So these energy trading communities will see at least a 20% reduction in their energy use initially. But I said I was going to get energy bills down to 0. So how else can we use this energy data that we're gathering in the home with Verv to further reduce the bills? So by putting the customer at the center of what we're doing, we realize that maybe the consumer would be up for trying to monetize their data in some way. So if you imagine that we know appliance information, so we know who you buy your washing machine from, and we know how long you've had it for, how efficient it is, people like Amazon are very interested to know that. And another kind of less consumery example there is National Grid. So if National Grid could forecast with extreme accuracy the energy requirements of every home in the UK, we could plan the grid much more effectively and balance it. So we would then know, or rather National Grid would be able to ensure that there was enough energy for the demand. And we wouldn't end up having to go and buy really expensive energy from other countries in an emergency or fire up a big dirty power station. So that is another area in which we could use this data in order to give the consumer the upside. So the really important thing about what I'm saying, that's saving National Grid a huge amount of money. If we can share that with the customer, that's going to be a better world, right? And they can use it to offset their energy bill. So the discussion around data can be a bit of an awkward one, and I bet you some of you breathed in when I was talking about selling appliance data to Amazon, particularly with the Cambridge Analytica scandal. But the one thing that we know about this is how valuable our own data is. And your data is being sold already. What we're trying to do is ensure you experience the upside. So for that reason, we've partnered with Ocean Protocol. I'd really recommend looking them up if you're interested in the data space. And they have created basically a protocol that our energy data trading marketplace will sit on top of. And it's all on the blockchain. So it allows us to trade data in a safe and secure manner. And it also ensures the control of the data remains with the data owner, i.e. you. So you will know exactly what data you're going to sell, how much you're going to get for it, and you can also revoke that access at any time you want. And I'd like to just mention Singapore. So Singapore is a place that is basically so far ahead of everywhere in terms of smart cities. So having visited there and talked about Verv to them, it's just amazing the technological developments. And they have built a range of data sandboxes in order to trial this. So if I'm going to talk about the future of energy, I need to look out to other industries and what we can learn from them. So water is definitely behind us. We all like a good laugh at water whenever we're in the energy industry. But who's in front? Banks like Starling and Monzo showed us that you don't need a branch because customers, one, don't want them, and two, don't need them. They want to bank from home. Uber made taxi ranks fast becoming a thing of the past because you don't want to stand in the freezing cold. You want to walk out when your car's ready. And Airbnb did the same thing with the travel industry by allowing consumers to buy products and services peer-to-peer instead of going through the incumbents. So I would say in the energy sector, incumbents need to stop treating all customers the same. We are very, very different. And if we look at Google and Amazon, and particularly Werner's talk today, he talked about putting the consumer at the center of everything they do, and that is the secret to their success. So the energy industry is no different. We have to create products that people not only need, but want. It's not enough to just supply someone with energy anymore. You must also add value. And so today I see there are two choices for particularly the incumbents. There can either be a revolution or there can be an evolution. And I'd like to see us all evolve together. Thank you.